The framework that works perfectly with $1,000 will quietly betray you at $10,000. Not because the math changes, because the psychology does. And almost nobody making that jump sees it coming until the damage is already done. Welcome to Warren's portfolio. Here's the number that should make you pause. Behavioral finance research has consistently found that as windfall amounts grow larger, the percentage spent on discretionary purchases often increases, not decreases, even when the person swears their habits haven't changed. $1,000 windfall feels manageable. A $10,000 windfall feels like permission. That feeling is not a coincidence. It's a documented shift in how the human brain categorizes risk, reward, and deserved spending once a number crosses an invisible psychological threshold. The 80-15-5 split that protected the first $1,000 doesn't automatically protect the 10th. The same percentages applied without adjustment can quietly create new vulnerabilities that didn't exist at the smaller scale. There's a specific recalibration that has to happen at this exact dollar threshold, and almost every personal finance framework conveniently skips it. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what breaks when the numbers get bigger, and exactly how to rebuild the sequence so it scales instead of cracks.
Let's start with why $10,000 is not simply 1,000 times 10 in psychological terms. At $1,000, the 5% guilt-free category equals $50. That's a dinner out, a small purchase, something contained and forgettable. At $10,000, that same 5% equals $500. That's not a dinner anymore. That's a category of purchase that can create its own follow-on spending. A $500 item often comes with accessories, maintenance, or a lifestyle expectation attached to it. This is the first crack in the framework. Fixed percentages don't account for absolute dollar thresholds where spending behavior changes in kind, not just in degree. Here's the open loop you need to hold on to. The framework isn't wrong, it's incomplete. And the missing piece is something behavioral economists call the threshold effect. Now here's the second crack, and this one is more dangerous because it hides inside something that looks like discipline. At $1,000, the 80% allocation toward debt or investment is usually a single decision: pay off one credit card or make one lump sum contribution. At $10,000, that 80%, now $8,000, often needs to be split across multiple competing priorities. Maybe there's $8,000 in credit card debt at 24% interest, but also an opportunity to max out a retirement account contribution and also an emergency fund that's dangerously thin. The original framework assumed one destination. At scale, you often have 3 or 4, and without a clear hierarchy, people freeze, or worse, split the money so thinly across all options that none of them move the needle. This is the paralysis trap that wealthier individuals learn to navigate specifically by having a pre-built decision hierarchy, not by being naturally more decisive. Here's the actual hierarchy that financial professionals generally agree on, in order. First, any debt charging double-digit interest, because no investment reliably outperforms a 24% guaranteed return from eliminating that debt. Second, an emergency fund covering 3 to 6 months of essential expenses, if it doesn't already exist. Third, tax-advantaged retirement contributions, especially if there's an employer match being left on the table. Fourth, everything else: taxable investing, business capital, or additional debt paydown. Notice what's missing from that list at the top: the 15% savings allocation that worked perfectly at the 1,000 scale. Here's the third crack, and it's the most counterintuitive one. At $10,000, a flat 15% into accessible savings can actually become inefficient, because $1,500 sitting in a low-yield account while $8,000 of high-interest debt remains unpaid is mathematically costing you money every single month it sits there. The fix isn't more savings, it's smarter sequencing of the same dollars based on what they're actually competing against. So here's the open loop resolving completely. The 80-15-5 framework wasn't designed to be permanent. It was designed to be a starting discipline, training wheels that build the habit of intentional allocation before the amounts get complicated enough to require real prioritization. Outgrowing the framework isn't failure. It's the entire point of the framework working.
So here's the recalibrated framework for $10,000 and beyond. 5 steps. Step 1. Before assigning any percentage, list every competing destination for the money: debt, emergency fund, retirement, investing, with the actual interest rate or expected return attached to each one. Step 2. Apply the hierarchy, not the percentages. Eliminate double-digit interest debt first completely before allocating a single dollar elsewhere. There is no investment math that consistently beats this. Step 3. Build the emergency fund to 3 to 6 months of essential expenses before increasing investment contributions beyond any available employer match. An unfunded emergency fund turns market volatility into forced, badly timed selling. Step 4. Recalculate your guilt-free percentage based on absolute dollars, not just the original ratio. If 5% now equals 500, deliberately decide if that number still represents guilt-free or has quietly become lifestyle creep with a discount code. Step 5. Rebuild your own hierarchy every time the windfall size increases by an order of magnitude, from $1,000 to $10,000, from $10,000 $10,000 to $100,000. The framework should evolve with the number, not stay frozen at the level where you first learned it. Here's the truth that most personal finance content won't tell you. Discipline that worked at one scale can quietly fail at the next scale, not because you got worse with money, but because the math underneath the percentages genuinely changed. Warren didn't abandon his original system at $10,000. He upgraded it, replacing fixed percentages with a real hierarchy built on actual interest rates and actual priorities. And if you want to see exactly how this hierarchy changes again once debt is fully eliminated and the entire conversation shifts to building wealth instead of protecting it, that breakdown is coming in the next video. Subscribe now, because that's the version of this framework most people never get to see. This is not personal finance. This is financial warfare. And the framework that grows with your money, that's the only one that was ever actually built to last.